Welcome everyone to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathy Group. I'm your host today, and I'm the manager of advertising for HGA. Today, I want to thank our sponsor, the Quebec Weavers Guild. They were wonderful in sponsoring this episode, and we do appreciate that. And I did you all a favor and not pronounce it in French. So thank you, Quebec. If we will have questions at the end of the session today in the last 15 minutes, please put your questions in the Q&A and not in the chat. We love your chat. Keep those coming, but I can't always see those questions if they're there, and we can always see them in the Q&A, so please put those there. Today we have Louise Lemieux Berube. Louise has a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Quebec in Montreal. She studied Jacquard weaving at the Rhode Island School of Design. Her woven jacquards have received numerous awards and has been exhibited not only in Canada, but internationally. She co-founded the Montreal Center for Contemporary Textiles in Montreal and has served as its director from its opening until her retirement in 2012. She has inaugurated a gallery at the Montreal Center for Contemporary Textiles, and she curated numerous exhibits of local and international artists' works. She is the author of Le Tissage, Créateur, a comprehensive textbook on weaving, and the co-author with Carole Greene of Louise Lemieux Berube, Unwinding the Threads, published in 2012. Hi, Louise.
Hello everyone.
It's wonderful to have you here.
Very pleased to be here.
I think a lot of people are going to tune in just to hear your lovely accent.
Really lovely?
Oh, it is lovely. Would you start? Oh, well, we got to get the important question first. I'm jumping the gun here. What is your favorite tea?
Oh, green tea, but actually I don't drink tea a lot, only when I have a guest or while in Japan. So
when you're in Japan?
Yeah, when in Japan, really every day I would drink green tea.
Oh, great. So how did you get started in fibers? I read a lot about what you've accomplished, but how did you get started?
Well, first, my mom was a seamstress. She would do all the clothing for the family, children. And after, when I had my own children, two, a boy and a girl, I started to sew for them. And soon I was kind of, when I was ready to go out a little bit more, because there was no daycare center at that time. Well, I'm old. I went to do a fashion school at night. And then I started a small business sewing for a businesswoman. And one day on television, there was a weaver, famous weaver in Quebec, who was presenting his collection of fabric with a fashion designer. And I realized that I love more the fabric than the fashion. So soon I got in touch with him, and it was my first days of learning how to weave. And after that, I joined a group, and then finally I got involved very much involved.
Well, lucky for us. Now, we have an image of, I think this is the Jacquard loom from the Center of Contemporary Textiles.
Yes.
So
yeah.
For those who don't understand what kind of a loom a Jacquard loom is, could you do a brief, really brief? I don't want you to have to go into detail or anything, but what makes it so special?
Yeah, so the big difference between a regular loom, like most of the people are having now, are holding the threads in the shafts or harnesses. So you have a thread that would be on a shaft one and the other threads on shaft two. But the Jacquard loom, each thread is individually threaded. As if you have, let's say, a Jacquard with 500 threads, it would be like 500 harnesses. So each thread is individual. So what you do when you want to do any images, any shapes, it's easy. It's not repeated that like it would be on a harness loom or the shaft loom. So it's the fact that you could do anything to any threads at the same time. So you could draw, you could take a photograph, you could do a design, repeat a design. So it's the facilities of doing what you want, not what the loom could do for you. It's what you want to do.
You
Sure.
showed who's boss. So I'm assuming all of that stuff on the top, that's like the computer part, right? That's the part that says this thread, this thread, this thread, this thread, right?
Yes, yeah. Before these new looms, well, it's a hand weaving loom. But before, at first, when the Jacquard looms were created by Monsieur Jacquard, Monsieur Joseph Jacquard, it was punch cards.
Mhm.
So a wood pick would go into a hole in the punch card and would lift that thread or those threads. After that, what electrolyte came, and then these are the top part of this loom is replacing the punch card, whatever items on the top.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm reading some information about Jacquard. I thought it was interesting that before Jacquard, there was some guy back there lifting up threads. Like there was a weaver and there was a guy on top, kind of like the monkey on top, pulling up each individual thread.
Once I was in France and somebody was demonstrating how Jacquard loom was working, and she said that Monsieur Jacquard had his son on top of the loom lifting the threads for him, and the son was becoming annoyed by doing that, and that's when he decided to change the boys for a punch card.
Yeah, if you're miserable enough, you'll find some other way to do it, right? So what did you start weaving on? I'm assuming you didn't start on Jacquard. What kind of loom did you start on?
Oh, no, I had all those four harness loom, Leclerc, mostly Leclerc, because in Quebec, that's what the only looms we could buy. And first of 4 harness, 8 harness, 16 harness, double beam, 2 beams behind, and then the electronic AVL. So I had one after the other, never 2 looms at a time though, one after the other. I sold one and bought one all the time until I had the Jacquard. Yeah.
In 1980, you got trained to use the software required for Jacquard, and you had to travel to do that, right? You had to go to Europe and other places to get that kind of training. And it really struck me because 1980, I think we were still using DOS. That was pretty early on to get trained to do this loom.
Yeah, but when I first went to France to learn about weaving with technology with software, it was not for Jacquard. It was for shaft weaving.
Mm-hmm.
But this man that I met was really starting the first software for weaving that I have known. At that time in 80, there was none other. So I met him, and then he introduced me to 2 of his assistants, who then. One of them, the 2 of them, they created the software later, in late 80s. So, but my connection started with the software with a regular loom. It had to be electronic, but regular shaft loom. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess the other thing that struck me about that is that maybe you didn't think of it, but I would imagine that I would feel a little intimidated, or I don't know, scared to travel to learn. I mean, you could have just stayed home and said, I can't do this. I just think it's pretty brave that you're like, I'm going to go off and learn how to do this.
Yeah, but at that time, I had a computer. Before I went to France, I had a computer and I was emailing. I had 2 email addresses I could connect to. There was only 2 other people I knew who had a computer and an email. So I was really at the start. I've been always interested in computers. So I remember very well, this guy lived not too far, like next door, not almost next door, and we were emailing just to test. So that's why when I was there and I saw that a man was creating a software for weaving, well, it connected, everything connected.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I think I like technology. I like technology.
You do.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this question, though. There's always talk about Jacquard and other motor-driven or computer-driven, and there people are like, that's not hand weaving. That, what do you say to that?
First of all, hand weaving, it's using our hands, hands. So I have shuttles, sometimes only 1, sometimes 2, sometimes 3. My Jacquard, the 3s, in colors, and 4 or 5 shuttles to throw. So hand weaving for me is using your hands to weave. And if you compare to MBL, the machine is all working just by itself. There's only one person watching that one thread is not broken or whatever. The machine works just by, when you put the electricity on. So hand weaving, whatever it is, a shaft loom or a jacquard loom, if you sit down, if you have to sit down and throw your shells, that's hand weaving.
Mm-hmm.
The loom doesn't work by itself. The loom doesn't know what to do. First, before that, even before you sit on the loom, you have to prepare everything. So you have to know something about software. You cannot just say, okay, now it's hand weaving, I treadle, and then it starts. We have to create everything to bring your whatever design that you have created with the software, the weaving software. There are many of them. So you bring it into your computer that runs the loom, and then you start. So all the work prior to weaving is a lot. Your mind is working, the body is working, your hands, your mind, your ideas, and then it forces you to create so that your hands could do something intelligent.
Well, that's a great argument. I like that. I like that. Excuse me. So we're going to look at some of your work now. I'm so sorry. And one of the things that's interesting, and obviously in this piece, but in a lot of your works, you show people. So what is the attraction? I mean, there's so many things you could weave, right? What is the attraction of showing people, and how do you choose them? Why these four?
I love people. I'm a communicator. Being a teacher is also being a communicator.
Mm-hmm.
This series, which the name of it is One Another, but previously to that, it was under another title, was Love One Another. Because in the Biennale, Linen Biennale in Quebec, like becoming famous, I was invited to participate, and I was given the church for the place to show my work, upstairs, on both sides of the church, the Catholic church. So I said, well, I have to do something related to the space. I cannot just do anything. So I had all those photographs that I did while traveling, and sometimes in meetings, sometimes, in all kinds of occasions. I always had my camera. Now I would have my iPhone, but at that time I had a camera, and I would just photograph. The one on the left was in an event in Toronto, and one is the brother of someone, a weaver, whatever. So I had a lot of photos. So I decided, being in the church and being told to love one another, I said, okay, I'm going to put together. So before that presentation, there were only 2 by 2. I would choose, let's say, this man in a suit, like he's a lawyer, the brother of a weaver, and the girl on the side is a student that always was wearing that kind of a dress. So I put them together, saying, okay, you love one another, don't judge, just love the one beside you. So for me, it was very important to do that. So that's what the first presentation, they were all couples, whatever you think of a couple. So after that, it became, because, I didn't have another opportunity or desire to show in a church, it became a long strip of 16 of those images side by side on the wall, and just being there, like, I have a story about each one of them, and I wrote a little bit of text about each one of them, and I just love them and are as they are, as they live, whatever they're where they come from, whatever they do every day. I like people. I am attracted to know more about a person, to know more about how they live and what they believe or whatever. So it's me.
I would imagine as you're looking at those and weaving them, I could just see me weaving that and having conversations with them. Like, so I'm going to put some blue here. Are you okay with blue? Let's put some blue here. Or how's your day today?
I would like to add, for the previous images, it was first presented in black and white only. So when I decided to bring them all together, I decided to paint with fabric paint. A detail. that would bring your attention, more precisely on them. Why I chose. So the suit here was very important. That it's the main subject, and the skirt, with the metal belt or whatever, but also, is her identity. And so everyone had painted. So it was quite interesting for me to say, well, why did I chose this one? Did I choose this person and the details and etc. So I very soon, because it was I like black and white weaving, but for that purpose, for that the next exhibition of that work, I wanted to say why I chose that person. So
So did all of the pieces that you did in that series, did you add color to them?
Yes.
Wow, that's a lot of work.
I'm a worker.
No, I know someone's going to ask this, so I'm going to ask it now. What is the size, roughly, of these pieces?
Okay, when it was only 2 by 2, it was a meter wide. But when I sewed them together, these are all stitched together, I cut a little bit on each side of them. So it must be, I would say, 32 wide, each panel, inches.
32
inches wide, each panel.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
So
about
100 and something inches tall.
Yeah, a meter and a half, maybe. Well, a yard and a half or more.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because you see, there's more. No, they're not. No, they're not all the same height. It's okay.
One of the things that I was curious about is some of your work has a lot of energy in them, that you seem to capture the movement of the people that are in these images. And these next images that are coming up are a great example of that. But that you also caught the energy in the landscapes. Like you've got images moving, but what I loved about this one is that it's like the landscape moves.
Mm-hmm.
So what is with movement and you using movement?
Mm-hmm. I don't want my work to be static, So in this is one image, and well, the background, what you see in color, the background was one image in autumn in Montreal, and you see the black trees were from another photograph. I just, took out whatever I needed, like the back trees. So there are two images are superimposed, one over the other. And it was woven narrow. I think that time must be at 24 inches wide each panel, because that's what is the type of loom I have personally. But I didn't want to put them all the same level. So I just said, well, it's nice to have, as if it invites you to go inside the forest, inside the image. So, and plus I added those maple, would stick behind to keep them, separate from each other and away from the wall also. So yeah, I see movement too, and I see also an invitation to enter the scene.
It does. You do just want to kind of go and walk behind, see what's behind that tree, and then walk on back. And the color is just amazing. It's just so beautiful.
So this is a tackety weaving. And first, when I have the original image, I have to reduce the number of yellows and reds and greens. I have to reduce because let's say in tackety, I must have had maybe 6 shuttles. One green, one blue, one yellow, one red, one silver. Like the sky is silver thread. You don't see it very well here, and one black. So I certainly 6 shuttles for that. So if you don't think it's by hand, imagine the 6 shuttles on your loom and your hands, trying to not drop the shuttle on the floor. I'm weaving by hand with a Jacquard loom.
One of the other things that struck me about your work is that it seems to tell a story. Or maybe I want it to tell a story, but when I look at it, it's like, I wonder what these people are doing, or what are they saying, or what's going on. And like the 2 gentlemen on the right, are they the same person? Are they talking? Yeah. Is that important to you? Is that intentional of trying to get the viewer to come into the story, if there is one?
First of all the dancers, it's come from, I went, meeting the dancers, and it's a choreography. Okay, there's a story. The dance itself is a story.
Mhm.
When I go photograph, I go at least once when they rehearse, and another time when it's presented in public. So I'm there. The more I know the choreography, I'm with them. So it's not my story, but I make it like the one on the left with the two men. It's the same. It's the same dancer. Well, it doesn't look as if he was dancing, but it's the same one that I doubled because I thought it was reflecting, and he was reflecting with his friend, and then it becomes my story. What I see in the forest, and they really are serious and thinking of what's next in life, whatever. The one on the right was a choreography. This man was a Japanese, very old dancers, very famous, but old. He came to Montreal, and he was dancing with a Montrealer, female Montrealer dancer. And he was hardly moving on the scene. So you go to a dance presentation, and this man was hardly moving, and the handkerchief or whatever, the piece of textile he has in his hand represent his dad who died. He was also a dancer, a famous dancer in Japan. So he was always kind of reflecting, thinking of his dad. So this was when I had 3 pieces of him alone like that,
Mm-hmm.
And the Montrealer dancer was around him, and they were friends together in real life. So again, I make it my own story after that. I might be wrong when I say that he's dreaming of his dad, but I know it well from what you have in the written paper when you go to the presentation. So I really, you see, like his face, hardly details, but he's sad. That he's thinking, he's reflecting. So I like that with a minimum details. So in that way, I make my own story.
Again, I like the contrast of the black and white and the red. Now, again, did you paint that, or was that what?
Paint.
It really pops. It's just amazing.
Because I don't want to also, I could have, woven colors there, but it's never my purpose to show how much I know or how much, technical. I thought painting was better on that. My decision is never to show off technical aspects.
You mentioned earlier about photography, because you start with photography, right? When you're designing, you start with an image. Have you gotten to the point that you think of yourself as a photographer as well as a fiber artist?
No, I'm not I would say a photographer. If I was a professional photographer, I would say yes, but I'm not. I photograph, but I'm not a professional photographer. I had always my camera at that time when I traveled, and sometimes even in Montreal, I go to an event, I would bring my camera. I belong to 2 or 3 different guild of photographers, and sometimes participate in their exhibition. But I would not consider myself as a photographer. I'm a weaver, but because of with the aid of Jacquard, I know I could use my photographs. So I was a lot photographing, never knowing in advance what I would do with them, with the photographs. But suddenly I have an idea, and then I just go in my bank have a lot of photographs in my bank.
Well, did you find that your approach to photography changed the more you used it for weaving? Like when you took a picture and you wove it, you would say, oh, the next time I'm going to do this different because it would make my weaving better, or?
Not really, but when I do photograph like a long choreography, first I like to do when they rehearse, because they do it twice, at least twice during the evening when they do a rehearsal, So I'm alone there with my camera. So I start photographing anything, and I photograph fast with the speed, the speed, so that it's very clear. The images are clear, but I know where I would like to do a slow motion photograph. So details, or it's not so neat when I have the photos, so I mix them after that. So and after when I I would photograph the same choreography in public when they do when they perform in public. Again, I was sometimes allowed to go in the first row and photograph, because it was lightning. It was another set of another installation, and so I mixed them. After one choreography, I might have 200 photos. I would choose the most 10 of them, and sometimes I had, like my series on Rhode and Claudel was from a choreography presented in Montreal, and I had at least 200 photographs because I did a lot of shoot, like 2 days of one rehearsal and one in public, and so I made 5 big, large pieces, woven pieces out of that. So this was my stories after that. When you see the 5, because I was trying to show the importance of Claudel. Rodin for me was beside her. She was my artist. I wanted to show. And I have to tell you, at the Museum of Fine Art, when they presented the Rodin exhibition, I offered the museum to give them one artwork on the subject, and the person in charge of the presentation of the exhibition did not want my piece because it was like I was showing Claudel too much. To see only Rodin. So I said, so after that, the museum accepted my piece, but after the show was over. But for me, Claudel was very important, and she was ignored in the story, this story.
Well, what is the connection between fiber and dance for you?
I think it's work. Dancers do work. Fiber while weaving, it's work. And I want to bring them together. I think I'm always impressed by the work of any artisan or any artist. Let's say I would meet a painter. It's not the painting that interested me more, it's the painter. So the dancers, there's a story, but I like to see the bodies. I like to see them moving. It's so hard. You imagine that at the left, this image, it's a very famous image. This I did not photograph. I was permitted to use that photograph. Louise Le Cavalier is her name, and she's a very famous dancer in Montreal. I photographed her later on something else, but not on this one. But it's the work. Imagine the work behind. You cannot get this position like that in one shot. Years of work. Same thing on the left, they look very simple, but I like the work of artists, the work they have to make, how the everyday work that you have to include in the final piece of art. That's what I like, more than the piece itself.
Did you dance as a child? Did you take dance lessons?
No, no.
I think maybe you should.
I was a sport type of a person, though. I did a lot of sport, basketball. Yeah, and then recently, about 4 or 5 years ago, I was doing weightlifting. And I'm the best in Canada in my age.
Really?
Yes, weightlifting.
Oh, wow. Okay, y'all, you heard it here first. All right.
Yeah.
She's an incredible fiber artist, but she can also kick your butt because she's a weightlifter. What got you into weightlifting? I mean, they're saying now how important it is for older people to keep calcium. All of us should be doing that to keep our calcium level. Is that what you got into it?
Yeah, well, it was more the challenge. Challenge of I met this person who could train me, and she was the type of the studio where I went to do that sport was all about weightlifting. More guys than I was probably the only woman. But so I loved that, and then also I had a broken hand. I felt that while I was in Los Angeles for my biography, I fell and I broke my hand. And also I wanted to really give my hand all the strength that I could, after that accident. And it certainly not forces me, but invited me to work. But I remember the day there was a competition. So I was the first one to start, but after that it was 12 years old girls and boys. But in my group, my age group, I was the best one.
That's great. Well, must have been scary when you broke your hand, because your hands are important for you. I mean,
it took me a couple of years to recover and really use my hand for weaving, for example. It was very hard, very hard. Now my hand is, you see that this one is broken. You see that? So my hand is not good to look at, but it's very strong because probably of weightlifting.
Good. This next image we're going to talk about is that you have delved into other modalities. And this was a great example of you pulling in metal as well as glass, as well as cloth. Yeah. So would you tell us about this piece, please?
Yes. First, I'll tell you that this is presented in a forest owned by a couple of craft artists who, when they got married, probably 50 years, 40 years ago, they bought this land and, they grow trees a lot, and decided, because they were in the art field, they invited sculpture to present their work permanently to give them, but so it's a place where you could present your work. So I was very close to them, and they asked me one day, why don't you do something? Textile outside, I don't know, it's very hard. And I start, I couldn't come to a solution. So the year I retired from the center, Montreal Centre, I had a collection that we see on the right, a collection of pieces that I would use when I was teaching, examples of different weave structures and images, or Jacquard, non-Jacquard metallics, all kinds of linen, all those years that I was, and all around it's all metal. So, but I was retiring, and where to put all that. so I did, okay, I said, they have to be outside. So I made the composition of that table and the chairs, and they are 1.5 bigger than regular size or normal size. And I wanted to just give away my collections of textiles, my studies, my pieces for teaching. So they're sealed in that table. And I wanted a diagram or a design that reflects on textiles, that would be cut on the back of the chairs. And I said I was very happy with that. And the photos are nice in winter, summer, so it's there. It's there. It's about less than an hour. It's about an hour and a half from Montreal, so it's a beautiful space. And there are 50 approximately sculptures in that park, in that forest. So I'm not a sculptor, but I'm very happy to be there, and my work is there. And it was kind of also turning the page, after being the teacher and the administrator of the school. So it was a kind of a testimony about who I am.
Speaking of the school, you have been a proponent of the fiber arts and an artist, both of them. And you were the co-founder of the Center for Contemporary Textiles in Montreal. It just seems like a huge undertaking to make that happen. So how did this idea begin?
It first started at the college. We have in Quebec, we have different levels of education. We have, primary school, secondary school, college, which is not university, but in the States, I know that some colleges are university. So college and then university. So the college level wanted, and also some important craft people wanted to start a program in a craft. And the college accepted what was also asked by the government to start, if possible, a school for a craft, you know, like it could be ceramic, glass, woodworking, etc. So at first, before I was even involved, there was about 4 schools, and one of them was printed textiles. So a friend who was working with me at the school, the two together said, oh, we have to ask for constructed textiles. You know, it's very different. So we went at the college with the staff there, you know, in charge of those programs, or those schools. They're outside. We were not living in the college. We could, you know, find any place we wanted, you know, but we're in connection. We're paid by the college. So at first, when I went, you know, talking about weaving and knitting, didn't believe in us. It was for women in the basement, or women, you know, knitting their socks for the grandchildren or whatever. So it was very hard. They wouldn't accept. I said, well, give me a couple of months and I'll come back to you. So when we come back, and then I knew what I was talking about. I presented a program where you learn with the computer how to run a knitting machine, computerized knitting machine, computerized embroidery machine, computerized looms. Yeah, not only that in the program, but that was included in the program. And they said yes. Oh yes, was computers, was, you know, if I had not done that, the school would have never existed. So we started like that, and students, they were not forced, well, they had to study, they were forced to study all these electronics machines, but for their final exhibition, they could choose whatever they want, but they had to study all that. So for me, I was at ease because I knew the first time I tried to knit on those knitting machines, I said, no, it's not for me. Dropping on the loom, you don't drop your threads. It's just weave. Knitting for me was no, that's not me. But embroidery was for me also very exciting. And I did quite a lot of my photograph embroidered on the machine. Yeah. So for coming back to your hands and weaving or hand knitting, it's not that important. It's what you do. It's what you do. It's not whatever you are. You do it. It's what you do and your ideas and your creation. That's most important.
I read somewhere that you said that you were insistent that they had quality equipment.
Oh yeah.
And I read some other things, and it just sounded like you were going to be an advocate for the artist. You were going to train them, but you were also going to train them to be savvy business people. You know, it's great to make beautiful art, but if you can't make a living at it, kind of thing, right?
Oh yeah, I was very concerned about, you know, offering this program, make sure that if they want, they could do it. You could do it as a living, or, you know, maybe a combination of different things, but towards whatever they chose. Either at the end, they either chose weaving or knitting or embroidery, you know, and it was very important, and that's why also the college insisted, like they learn accounting, history, and color theory at the college. In the school, they learn the equipment, you know, regarding the techniques, all the techniques, and also. We made every year for each level an exhibition of what they have done during that year to see also all the progress and all. And I think the combination of being also at the college with other students of other field was very good for them. And I think it was a good, it's very unique, I think, the system that we have for craft. And now, like the school, my school, the textile school, during my time, very rarely we had 2 groups. We take about no more than 10 at a time. So sometimes we had two groups, you know, maybe let's say 15 divided into 2 groups. But for the recent years, there are 2 groups all the time in textiles in our field. So I'm very proud. And recently, a group of students, about 15, a bit less than 15, they invited me. Well, one invited me to dinner because she was in town, she said. And then when I arrived at the restaurant, those 15, some of the best students I had were there celebrating. So was very nice. It was very nice.
So I think you have probably been an inspiration for so many of your students and people who see your art and take your classes. So who's your inspiration, or was, or has been?
Yeah, I would say that the artist that I admired best was Juni Shiarai. He's not very well known nowadays. Maybe there was a time where buying a scarf or finding a scarf from Juni Shiarai was, everybody wanted a Juni Shiarai. He has been, yeah, I would say my inspiration. I've met him first in Germany. I knew him before because it was in some textile boutique, you could find a Juni Shiarai scarf. But I met him because he was giving a workshop in Germany. I called, it was announced maybe in AJ magazine or another one. And I called, I said, I want to be in that workshop. They said, no, it's all booked, because I received it, later in Canada, the magazine. I said, no, I want to meet him. Absolutely want to meet him. She said, well, send me your portfolio and I will come back to you. And I was accepted. So I went for 2 weeks in Germany. And after that, while I was exhibiting in Japan, one day in Japan, you exhibit most of the time. 1 week, you have to stay there full time. And a lot of students come and, you have to be there. And the last hour of the last day, he came. Oh, it was... Juni Shiarai came to my exhibition, and after that, the next day he was around, and we had lunch together. I have a photograph of him and me at the so Juni Shiarai, but also Juni Shiarai did a lot of weaving, three-dimensional weaving for a very famous fashion designer. What's her name? Not excuse me, but I have his name somewhere because I'm going to miss my saying. No, I have to name it. Sorry, Juni Shiarai. Yes, Issey Miyake. So Juni Shiarai was working with Issey Miyake for a while, not all the time. Issey Miyake died in 2022 and Juni Shiarai in 2017. So these are the two. I think the Japanese culture interests me a lot. So those two men and creator are really my inspiration.
I love your persistence. Just instead of saying, oh, okay, it's closed, you hung in there with it. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, we got a lot of questions. So why don't we finish our last of the questions I have for you, which is, what is next for you?
I'm already in the next. For some time I was often saying to friends in the weaving field, I've visited so many countries and so many people came to Montreal especially to learn about Jacquard weaving, because I was the first one with a Jacquard loom in the school, a hand Jacquard loom. And so I often say, like joking a little bit, saying I could do the around the world and stopping at each of my friends or, a weaver that I know and say hello and maybe sleep for one night. So recently, well, because of my age and also the time the time we are living in now, I said, no, it will be impossible. So I started to say, I'm going to invite artists to participate in a project. I was working on a three-dimensional weaving and I was making a box and I said, it would be fun to invite some artists to participate in that project. So I had 130 names and emails of people I know weavers in my email list, plus from 30 different countries. Okay, so that turn around the world is possible. So I started to invite them, and they were all honored and etc. And one of them said, "Why don't you do, the film Around the World in 80 Days? It could be 80 artists." So I'm in 80 artists now. I'm almost 40 done, and I didn't invite everybody yet. But now I'm just going by countries or. And yes, I'm preparing an exhibition of 80 boxes with a photograph of the person that I print, for my experience in printing. So I print and attach a textile from them on the top of the box, and inside their handwritten note, whatever souvenir, whatever they want to write, and maybe more textiles. So there'll be those boxes exhibited. And recently, a couple of days ago, I thought it would be nice to install them not on the wall, but around, like the globe. Imagine a globe, just the middle part, like a circle, maybe around the circle, so the people will do around the world with 80 artists. So that's where I am right now. It's fun. It's a lot of.
So how many have you've gotten done so far?
I have 40 portraits already printed. Inside the box, I'm missing about 7 to make 40. I'm almost
halfway, huh?
Yeah, and I'm very confident I'll hit the 80.
I think we have an image for this.
I think so. I think I sent you an image later.
We may be having difficulty. It may not have shown up in Dropbox.
No.
So let's go to questions. We'll come back to that if we can find it. Let's see if we, this is Pam Kicklighter. For a weaver who's not knowledgeable about jacquard weaving at all, is there a simple tutorial online or a book that you would recommend to explore the process?
I know that there's a book, because you need a software. You need a software that does jacquard weaving. But if you don't have that software, which is expensive, you could do it with Photoshop or similar softwares. But there's a book written by Betty Zeke and Alice Shrine about working Photoshop, to prepare an image for jacquard weaving. That would be the best suggestion that I could make.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know how to weave. You have to know different weave structures, etc. But it's preparing the image that is important. So you could do that with a software like Photoshop. There's other software also.
So who was the person you recommended?
That book is written by Betty Zeke, Z-I-E-K, and Alice Shrine, S-C-H-L-E-I-N.
Is it Woven Pixel?
Yes.
Okay, somebody's posted that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was just going to say to someone online that we should know.
All right, great. Thank you, Pam. Good question. Suzanne Neiman wants to know, what kind of thread do you normally use?
Natural threads, never all those synthetic threads, never. I use right now I'm using paper yarn that I comes from Japan, from my friends, through my friends in Japan. I love linen a lot, and I use a lot of metallics just to give a shine, to give light to some of my weaving. But when I do the trees, for example, all in color, in my shuttle there was about 6 strands of different very fine yarns, wool, some cotton or linen, and metallics. So I will never use polyester, all those non-natural threads.
I knew they would be. They're asking about the loom behind you. Is that a Seguin?
It's a Seguin loom.
Seguin.
Yeah,
or Seguin, as we pronounce it down here.
Seguin. Seguin. Yeah, it's a guy from around Montreal. It's the best loom I've ever had, except my jacquard loom. So this one is 24 harness, two back beams. You could want a 12 or 16 or 24 harness, back beams 1 or 2. I love it. It's portable. It's on rollers that stops when you want. You just stop the rollers, and I love it. It's 24 wide, 24 harness. Yeah, right now I have a small studio. I live in a condo. My husband has Alzheimer. He's not with me anymore. But I couldn't have a large studio, but I do the printing in a print shop with other artists. But the weaving is all done at home. Yeah.
Yeah, they had they were part of Spinning and Weaving Week. And I actually saw that loom at a conference one time and got to weave on it. It is, well, I hate to kind of go overboard with it, but it's kind of revolutionary. I mean, it's different. I mean, it's like they thought outside the box.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the guy who created is a genius, I think.
Oh, is he? Okay. All right.
With his wife teaching fiber works, for example. But yeah, I love it. I love it.
And I think we have that image of your around the world with the 80 artists. Let's pop that up.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, it's not.
Well, who's that good looking woman on the right?
It's me. It's not very clear for the image, but you see the box when it's woven on the loom, it's flat. When it's still flat, I print the image, the portrait, and then I open the box, and there's no sewing, there's no stitches. It's just open the box, make the bottom, attached with those paper yarn, and then attach the textile behind. And at first there were all those threads. I said I will bring them inside and hide them, but when I opened the first one, I said, well, my gosh, this is what I want. I didn't think ahead of time about that, but so imagine the 80 boxes with the face and the textiles. It would be an exhibition about textiles, not only weavers, but textiles. It would be very different. They are very different, but I have already on hand. So after all is done, even before the exhibition travels, I will send to the artist the wood plate, that I used to print. It's just 4x4, 5x5, about 5 inches. So
well, you'll have to keep us apprised of when it's ready and when it goes on display, so we can make sure people know about it.
There will be more than 20,000 knots to do. For the 80 boxes. I recounted, yes, more than 20,000 nuts. I'm getting nuts.
And people have also put up about the book, and it's Bhakti Zeke and Alice Schlein. Hi, I hope Alice is watching. Hi, Alice. And Bhakti, they both have been on Textiles and Tea. So if you all want to learn more about them, you can go back and people like Louise and Bhakti and Alice just reinforce the idea that weaving people are just wonderful people. They're just the best. Everybody's asking about that loom behind you. Oh, they want to know what kind of paint or dye you use to paint your weaving.
Two different. Some are paints that you buy in those handicraft store, like the paint for textile paint.
Textile paint.
And I sometimes use also dyes from Japan that I have, and I learned how to dye the way Japanese do. So I also use that when I have a lot or something very more specific, more detailed. I use paint. I use the dyes.
Okay, people want to make sure they get the name of the person who influenced you.
Junichi Arai.
Is it? We've got it written as Junichi. Jarai.
Yes.
Okay. And I believe that's in the there it is. It's in the chat.
There was a time when many weavers had the scarf from Junichi Arai. You could buy, especially in Toronto Museum, they have a boutique there, and that's why we could find them.
Thank you, Sarah, for putting that in there. As always, they want to know what you're wearing.
Oh,
is it something you woven? Is it something you made?
Well, the coat I bought in Taiwan.
Oh.
And this is I ordered from a place in Western Canada in Vancouver, but I embroidered. And this is a little piece of woven that I just put there.
Did you really?
Jacquard with very, very fine threads, and yeah. So I wanted to show off today.
You upscaled it. We have several people who said they've taken your classes and they love them and they are glad to see you on here. So I want you to know your fan club is here today.
Hello, Frank Club.
Somebody was asking about the Jacquard loom that we showed earlier. They were asking if it was an AVL.
It was I didn't talk about that. It was one day, when I wanted to have there was no TC1 at that time,
Right.
They were in preparation, but were not, accessible yet. So Peter Strauss from AVL, I asked him to come to Montreal, and a guy from France, through another friend, he was the owner of a company who made a Jacquard head for companies, for mills. So they came to Montreal, and I said, I want a hand loom with a Jacquard head. So it took maybe a year, and then I got the first hand loom with a Jacquard head. So AVL also at the same time ordered a smaller one for him to demonstrate in the studio, and years after I bought him the small one that he had in the company in California. But yeah, so I had those two men together, and I said, that's what I want, hand loom and Jacquard.
Now, can you still buy that head?
No, because the company, the French company, the dad died and the son didn't follow up. Sorry.
Oh, that's too bad.
So there are a few places that they have it, like at Concordia University. There's somebody else in the States, I don't remember who. Mine was sold to Denis, who made that loom, and then I exchanged, and Denis sold it to another ex-student of mine. So it's somewhere in Montreal. But I'm not, now that I'm printing, I like the way that I'm probably the only weaver printing my weaving. So I like to be different.
Well, I have to apologize to everybody who we didn't get to your questions. I'm sorry we couldn't cover everything. But Louise, thank you so much for being on here today. It was wonderful.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure, and I was a little bit nervous about
Yeah, I know it. I don't know why. You did beautifully. No one would have never known.
I want to thank everyone, UAGA, and also l'Association des Tisserands du Québec. And
yeah, what she said.
I'm just happy and very, very nice to be with all you all. I don't see, but you're there. I know you're there.
Well, thank you so much for being on here. And I encourage everybody to go to Louise's her website. There's more images of just beautiful, beautiful weavings of dancers, and just to watch them and see them, and not watch those, but to see the movement and the grace and the beauty of those weavings. Go to her website and check that out. It's well worth your time. I do want to thank the sponsors, and I can't say it as beautifully as Louise did, but it is the Quebec Weavers Guild. And we appreciate you sponsoring Louise today. It's appropriate that Quebec is sponsoring Quebec. Thank you so much for doing that. If your guild or your business or you would like to sponsor somebody for Textiles and Tea, please do so by going to our website and go to this Textiles and Tea page, and you can see sponsorship availability there. And then you can sponsor an episode. Or if you have questions, call me and we'll talk. Okay. You won't believe what's coming up next year. Convergence. It's amazing. How did that happen so quickly? It is open. Registration opened yesterday. So jump in there. We are filling up classes, trying to add new ones if we can. So if you are interested in a particular class, please register so we can get you in there. And a reminder, do your membership first. If you're buying the CVP, do that. Then you buy your classes, because it has to be done in that order. Okay. We have 150 classes. We have the fashion show. We have, of course, shopping. We've got vendors coming. We've got tours. And all of that is in a week of July 11th through the 17th. It's hard to believe. If you're not quite sure what you want to take, we started something new this year that I think is brilliant. So I'm going to pretend it was my idea, but it wasn't. But we are doing Zooms with the leaders so they can talk about their class. They'll show images. They'll talk about what's going to happen. So it's a little bit of insight into which class that you want to take. If you're curious and you're not real sure, all of that information is on the website. underneath Convergence. It lists everybody and when they'll be presenting. And as always, it's recorded. So if you can't be there, it's on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday at 1 o'clock Eastern time. So if you're working or you're not available, you could go back and watch it later. Everything's recorded. It's free, but it's a great way to learn about your class and whether or not you want to take this one or that one. So check those out. If you can either fly or drive into Wichita, it's kind of the center of the US. So I think getting there will be a little bit easier this year. Rooms are going fast. So jump in there and get your registration for your room. And we hope we'll be seeing you July the 11th through the 17th. We want to thank everybody who helps with sponsoring, donating, joining. That kind of sponsorship and support is what keeps HGA doing what we do and adding new things like the leader sessions. Your membership is greatly appreciated, but the donations are what really fund these new programs. And thank you so much for donating. You still have time to make a donation to, you can donate next year, and then you will get some early admission into the fashion show for your donation. I want to thank everybody for being here this week. If you've missed an episode, you want to watch this one again, you want to show it to a friend, you can do so on the HGA Facebook page, and you can also see it on YouTube. And I encourage you to subscribe to YouTube, because when you do, you'll get a notice that a new one has been uploaded. They take a little longer, but we'll get them up, okay? Thank you all so much. Next week, we have Felicia Lowe from Sweet Georgia Yarns. We're excited to have her there, another Canadian. So thank you so much. Have a great week and happy tea.